When I asked my dad to tell me some of the worst things he'd ever experienced in the police force, I never actually expected to hear the gnarliest story I ever heard. He was often the first police officer on the scene after a death was reported. Many of these cases were old people who had heart attacks or suffered similar, relatively bland fates by comparison. But every now and then, he'd get called out to help deal with people who'd fallen asleep in the bath and remained submerged for days, sometimes weeks. He told us about the old man who had one of those heating elements that kept your bath warm. He slowly cooked for 2 weeks before his daughter found him in what was essentially a human crock-pot without a lid. That was bad. The other story is worse. He was called out with his colleague to help deal with an old man who had come out from the pub, had a stroke, and died. He had laid in front of their electric fireplace before the event. Here's where he gets super fucked up. His wife, who by this point was very far gone with Alzheimer's disease, had brought him a huge collection of toast, crumpets, beans on a toast, etc., and numerous cups of tea, and had laid them around her husband over the course of 2 weeks. My dad said that she had zero comprehension of anything that had said to her. She either referred to the old man as her boyfriend, the strange guest, or the gas man. They'd been married for 40 years. When my old man and his colleagues proceeded to remove the corpse, he said it took them ages, as the meat was so tender that it slipped off the bone of whatever part of the body they lifted off the ground. The smell was apparently unfathomable, and no human should ever look the way that old man did. I never knew half of the shit my dad experienced in the police, but I guess that sort of explains his bitterness and the fact that he could be an RC spice. My girlfriend still wants to study forensic science, which is cool as fuck, but I could never do it here after many of these tales. Super fucking gnarly, though. I'm not a cop, but our campus monitor at school told me this story for an interview for the school paper. When he was a few years into his career, he answered a double homicide call. A kid killed both of his parents with a 2x4 on Christmas Day. He went and documented the scene and went back on patrol. Later that night, he sees someone walking down the street that matches the suspect description. He stops the guy and asks him basic questions and notices some blood on his sleeve and some gray shit on his watch. He arrests him and realizes what the gray shit was. The suspect looked up at him and straight-faced says, "Got that promotion on this one, huh?" One of the most sobering and dark conversations / stories I've had with someone. Really makes you look at the world differently. I have a detective friend who told me the story of a recent case. A man injected his female coworker in the neck with a syringe full of ketamine while at gunpoint. They had been on their way to lunch in his car. She fought back and was able to escape before the drugs kicked in. He was captured without incident. In the trunk of his car was a kill kit, i.e. duct tape, rope, hatchet, tarps, the works. Upon investigating his apartment, they discovered that he had gotten rid of all his possessions except for one suitcase and a notebook. This notebook was one long list of names, the first in the list being a female coworker. Here's the kicker. The victim didn't take any of this seriously, and despite the numerous attempts at changing her mind on the part of the police, she refused to press charges based on what little the guy had actually done. He was let go with a misdemeanor. My friend finished the story by stating, "I know this guy will kill someday."